Hello everyone, Featurenaut here. Welcome to City Skylines, and welcome to Westwood. Yes, that's whatever the game assigned that name. That's not something I picked up, or thought of. So anyway, anybody who has played this game will tell immediately that this is not a well planned out city. And those of you who have played very much will probably notice that this was built square by square. The only mod I'm using on this is the 25 tile mod, so instead of the 9 tiles that are open, you get the 25 tiles that are unlockable. I did just a basic vanilla start with this game with the 1 tile, and this is where it was. That's usually pretty obvious because that's where I put my my industrial. So this has got several different building styles on it. Some I like. Some are basic. Some I really like that don't really work that well. But anyway, so this is pretty much my original neighborhood for the city to go with my industrial. As you can see, it's a grid layout. I tend to default to the grid layout because it seems to be the most efficient and it's easy. I am not very good at building complicated cities. So Sunset Square was the first neighborhood I built when I got my what do you call it? Yeah, this stuff. These ones. High density. Yeah, that's what it is. It turned out actually rather well. Usually high density brings traffic problems, but this one really didn't. But to be fair, it's not a very big high density neighborhood, but it works well. And actually, I'm pretty surprised with my entire city because I don't really have any traffic problems. So let's take a look at that here. So by far the closest to traffic problem I have are this right here coming in and out of the industrial, and then this piece on Sunset Heights. I'm not sure why Sunset Heights does this, but I go through periods where this area right here will get backed up quite a bit both ways. And this is there's always a lot of traffic in this interchange going in and out of the industrial, but it never really backs up, so I'm not too terribly worried about it. But as you can see, you know, I've got high traffic areas, but I don't really have a whole lot of backing up. I do in here, but that is mostly because of the way I set up my bus lanes. I've got way too many buses stopping at the same stops. And is it there? Yeah. Yeah, it's this one. These bus stops in here literally have like 3 or 4 lines stopping at each. It doesn't work very well, and I think that's actually part of the problem with this, or maybe not. But anyway, I digress. I'm not very good at building public transit with buses. I rely much more heavily on subways. But I am particularly proud of Elm Hills. Generally, when I build in a circle like this, I don't know if it's just the way the rest of the city's laid out, the way the traffic flows, but generally when I build like that, I end up with huge traffic problems on the inlets and outlets, which on this one, there is only one outlet, which is right here. This is an inlet only to relieve some of the traffic coming in through here. But it turned out so well. I'm just pretty proud of it. I mean, it's nothing special, you know. It's nothing like some of the big YouTubers put up, but I really like this. And I also like this one. Daffodil Square is. I like the way I like I like the way it looks. It's very aesthetically pleasing. Um, but I have limited it to smaller neighborhoods because the problem I run into is when I get much bigger than this, I start running into traffic problems and public transit problems. So this one is a mixture of high density and low density, but it's also set to no skyscrapers. So you can see there's some there's some office buildings and some high density, um, yeah, commercial zones. but it works rather well. Although this kind of sticks out, but I needed to stick that somewhere, and that seemed to be a good place to put it. And this here, whatever, oh, Poplar Park, that's what it's called. That was another kind of experiment with kind of a curved grid layout, and I got to admit it worked rather well. It grew well. Services cover it pretty well. That's one thing I like about the grid building in the city builders. Basically, is your services are much easier to distribute, and they're much more efficient. But it just, I'm not a fan of the grid look. But this is the newest part of the city right here. This is all high density, but it's all set to no skyscrapers, so it'll never get taller than it is now. But the thing I'm happy with this city is that the public transportation, the subways are working very, very well. I'm moving a lot of people, and I'm making a lot of money with the subway. Yeah, 15, something like that, thousand. But there are some places I really had to modify it as it got bigger. Like this area here, this is kind of a conglomeration of the two subway stations with the different lines going through them, because I really had a backup of all these lines had cars backed up quite a bit, so I had to play with it, and it actually turned out pretty well. It works pretty well as I zoom into a... Okay, I might have to work on that a little more. But there's a lot of subway, but it seems to be the most efficient to use for me. I don't do regular rail because I can't make it work without getting huge bottlenecks, or it's super inefficient. I mean, not to say that my subways are super efficient, but they're much better than my railways. So I don't utilize railways for anything other than bringing tourists into the city and freight. This is my this is my rail station to bring tourists and people in and out of the city. And then here I've got my freight system that connects to the rails headed out. And this area is probably the last pieces I unlocked, and so I had everything pretty much centered around this interstate here, or highway, whatever you want to call it. And I had built this, but I wanted to build over in here, but didn't want to have all that traffic coming through this area. So I ran a road under my original neighborhood, and it's surprising how well it's actually working. This little interchange, I completely expected to have traffic problems with it, but it just seems to flow pretty well. I got nothing to complain about there. At this point, I do have 65,000 residences. I'm keeping my taxes as low as possible, so my money bounces between super negative and just barely positive. I haven't played City Skylines really since I built my new computer, so I'm actually, with this city, I'm nearing as big as I've ever built. My old computer with my FX 8350 and GTX 760, I think, about the time I got around 70,000 people, the game just slowed down so much it was no fun to play. I think the biggest I've ever done was like 80,000, maybe somewhere between 70 and 80,000. And this one seems to be going pretty well. I'm gonna build out in this area next. Not sure how I'm gonna deal with traffic and getting people there, but that's what I'll be doing probably tomorrow morning. But anyway, that's my city. I hope you guys enjoyed. Go ahead and like and share this video if you want. You don't have to share it, but a like is good. But anyway, if you have any questions, or if you'd like you'd like to point out any problems my city has that I may not have seen, go ahead and throw some comments in. But this is Feature Not, and we'll see you next time.